The coffee was still warm when I realized my wife was screwing a cop. Not the kind of revelation you expect on a Tuesday morning in Millbrook Heights, where the biggest scandal usually involves someone's garbage cans being out past pickup day. But there I was, sitting in my Ford pickup outside Sophie's elementary school, watching Emma laugh at something Officer Derek Tully was whispering in her ear at the Starbucks across the street. My name's Nate Harlan, 39 years old, former Navy SEAL turned private security consultant. These days I mostly install alarm systems for paranoid executives and teach self-defense classes at the community center. Not exactly the adrenaline rush of Kandahar, but it pays the bills and keeps me home for Sophie's soccer games. Emma didn't know I'd doubled back after dropping our 6-year-old daughter at school. I'd forgotten to give Sophie her lunch money and was heading back when I spotted my wife's silver BMW parked outside the coffee shop. Strange, considering she'd told me she had an early morning conference call. Through the window, I watched Tully lean closer to Emma. His hand rested on her forearm. She tilted her head back and laughed again, the way she used to laugh at my jokes before everything became about mortgage payments and parent-teacher conferences. Daddy's little surveillance hobby paying off, I muttered, pulling out my phone to snap a photo. Old habits from the team's die hard. Emma had been acting strange for weeks. Late-night phone calls she claimed were work-related. Sudden girls' nights with her best friend Casey that seemed to happen whenever I was home. Password changes on her laptop. The classic signs were all there, but I'd been too busy playing suburban dad to connect the dots. My phone buzzed. Text from Jordan, my old SEAL buddy who'd lost his left leg to an IED in Afghanistan and now spent his time running a computer repair shop and hacking into things he probably shouldn't. Coffee later? Got something interesting to show you about your neighborhood watch program. Jordan knew about my suspicions. He'd been running some digital reconnaissance for me. Nothing illegal, just checking public records and social media patterns. The man could make a smartphone confess its deepest secrets. I typed back. Make it lunch. Watching a very interesting coffee date right now. Inside Starbucks, Tully was showing Emma something on his phone. She covered her mouth with her hand, eyes wide with mock surprise. The body language was unmistakable. These two weren't discussing the weather or community policing initiatives. Derek Tully was everything I wasn't in this suburban paradise. Local hero, high school football star turned cop, married to the mayor's daughter. The kind of guy who looked good in uniform and knew exactly which hands to shake at the country club. He'd probably never spent a night wondering if the shadow in the corner was an enemy combatant or just his imagination playing tricks. My phone rang. Emma. Hey honey, she said, her voice bright and cheerful. Just grabbing coffee before my meeting. How did Sophie's drop-off go? Through the window, I watched her lips move as she spoke. Tully was leaning back in his chair, grinning. Fine, I said. Where's your meeting again? Downtown. That new client I told you about. The real estate development group. Another lie. Emma worked in marketing for a medical device company. I knew her client list better than she thought. Sounds important. When will you be home? Probably late. We might grab dinner to discuss the campaign strategy. Tully was nodding at something she was saying. His hand moved to cover hers on the table. Have fun, I said, ending the call. I sat there for another 10 minutes, watching my marriage dissolve over priced lattes. Emma finally stood, gathering her purse and giving Tully what looked like a quick squeeze of his shoulder. He watched her walk away with the expression of a man who knew exactly what those hips looked like without the business suit. When Emma's BMW pulled out of the parking lot, I followed at a distance. Instead of heading downtown toward her supposed meeting, she drove straight to the gym. Her Tuesday routine, right on schedule. At least some things in my life were still predictable. I parked across the street and called Jordan. Change of plans. Meet me at Murphy's Bar in an hour, and bring whatever you found. That bad? Let's just say my wife's book club is reading some very interesting material these days. Jordan chuckled. Brother, you always did have a way with understatement. After Emma disappeared into the gym, I drove home to our 4-bedroom colonial in the heart of Millbrook Heights. The mortgage was killing us, but Emma insisted we needed to maintain appearances for her career. The perfectly manicured lawn, the 2-car garage, the swing set in the backyard that Sophie was already outgrowing. The American dream, complete with a cheating wife and a husband who knew 17 different ways to kill a man with his bare hands. I poured myself a bourbon and sat in my home office, staring at the framed photo of my SEAL team from our last deployment. 8 guys who'd trusted each other with their lives. Now I couldn't even trust my wife to tell me the truth about a coffee run. The house felt different now. Every corner held a new suspicion. Had Tully been here while I was at work? Had Emma brought him upstairs to our bedroom? The thought made my jaw clench. Huh. I opened Emma's laptop, but she'd changed the password again. Smart girl, but not smart enough to hide her gym bag properly. In the front pocket, underneath her protein powder and hair ties, I found a burner phone. The message thread was short but devastating. Can't wait to see you again. Tonight, D. Book club ends at 9. Same place, E? Wouldn't miss it. Wear the blue dress, D. You're terrible. What if someone sees us, E? Let them look. You're worth the risk, D. I set the phone down carefully, my hands surprisingly steady. In Kandahar, this kind of intelligence would have triggered an immediate response. Target identified, threat assessed, mission parameters established. But this wasn't Afghanistan. This was suburban Connecticut, where the rules were different and the enemies wore friendly faces. My phone buzzed with another text from Jordan. Murphy's is packed. Meet me at the shop instead. I pocketed Emma's burner phone and headed for the door. Time to gather more intelligence before planning my next move. Jordan's computer repair shop was tucked between a dry cleaner and a Chinese restaurant in a strip mall on the edge of town. The sign outside read, Digital Solutions. But Jordan's real business was solving problems that required a more creative approach to technology. I found him in the back room, surrounded by monitors and hard drives, his prosthetic leg propped up on a desk chair. You look like hell, he said without looking up from his keyboard. Feel worse. What did you find? Jordan swiveled his chair around, his expression serious. Your boy Tully's been a busy little bee. Social media shows him at 3 different restaurants with Emma over the past month. Always careful about the angles, but if you know what to look for, he pulled up a series of photos on his main monitor. Emma and Tully at a wine bar downtown. Emma and Tully at a restaurant I didn't recognize. Emma and Tully walking out of a hotel. That last one was taken Saturday night, Jordan said, while you were at Sophie's sleepover party. The hotel was the Marriott downtown, 40 minutes from our house. Far enough that Emma wouldn't run into anyone from the neighborhood. There's more, Jordan continued. Casey's been covering for her. Social media posts about their girls' nights that don't match the timestamps on Emma's location data. He showed me Casey's Instagram feed. Photos of her at yoga class on nights when Emma claimed they were together. Pictures of Casey at home with her husband when Emma was supposedly at her apartment watching movies. The whole thing's been going on for at least 2 months, Jordan said. Maybe longer. I pulled out Emma's burner phone and handed it to Jordan. Found this in her gym bag. He scrolled through the messages, his expression darkening. Brother, I'm sorry. Don't be. Just tell me what you can do with it. Jordan's fingers flew over the keyboard. Phone's registered to a fake name, but the credit card used to buy it traces back to Tully. Sloppy operational security for a cop. What about tonight? According to this, they're meeting at the Sunset Motel on Route 9. Real classy establishment, the kind of place that rents rooms by the hour. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the parking lot where normal people were going about their normal lives. Getting their dry cleaning, picking up Chinese takeout, living in blissful ignorance of the wars being fought behind closed doors. What's the plan? Jordan asked. Still working on it, but Tully's about to learn that some books shouldn't be opened. Need backup? I turned back to my oldest friend, this man who'd literally taken shrapnel meant for me, and felt something cold settle in my chest. Not yet, but keep your phone on. At 7:30 that evening, I sat in my pickup truck across from the Sunset Motel, watching Emma's BMW pull into the parking lot. She'd left the house an hour earlier, kissing me goodbye and reminding me that Sophie's bedtime was 8 o'clock sharp. Book club might run late tonight, she'd said, adjusting her blue dress in the hallway mirror. The same blue dress Tully had requested in his text message. Now I watched her walk across the motel parking lot, her heels clicking on the asphalt. She moved with purpose, like a woman who knew exactly where she was going and what she was going to do when she got there. Tully's patrol car was already parked behind the building, out of sight from the main road. Smart positioning for a cop who was supposed to be on duty. I'd spent the afternoon making preparations, phone calls to my security company clients, rearranging tomorrow's appointments, a conversation with Mrs. Patterson next door, asking her to keep an eye on Sophie if I had to run out for a work emergency, a visit to the hardware store for supplies I hoped I wouldn't need. The burner phone buzzed in my pocket. New message from Emma to Tully. Room 12. Doors open. Well, I waited another 30 minutes, giving them time to get comfortable, then walked across the parking lot. The Sunset Motel was exactly what you'd expect from a place that advertised hourly rates. Peeling paint, flickering neon sign. The kind of establishment that minded its own business and expected customers to do the same. Room 12 was on the ground floor, facing the back parking lot. The curtains were drawn, but I could see shadows moving behind the thin fabric. I pressed my ear to the door and heard Emma's laughter, followed by Tully's deeper voice, saying something I couldn't make out. I pulled out my phone and started recording, then knocked on the door. Housekeeping, I called out in a higher pitch than my normal voice. The voices inside went silent. After a moment, Tully called out, "We don't need anything. Local. Sorry, sir, but we've had reports of a water leak from the room above. Need to check your ceiling for damage." More silence. Then I heard Emma whisper, "What do we do?" "Left. Just a minute," Tully called out. I heard movement inside, the sound of people getting dressed quickly. After about 2 minutes, the door opened to reveal Tully in his uniform shirt and boxers, his hair messed up and his face flushed. "There's no leak," he said, trying to block my view into the room. "Mind if I just take a quick look? Insurance requires documentation of any potential water damage." Behind Tully, I could see Emma sitting on the bed, pulling on her dress. Her hair was disheveled and her lipstick was smudged. She looked up and our eyes met through the doorway. The expression on her face went through several phases: confusion, recognition, fear, and finally a kind of desperate calculation. "Nate," she said quietly. Tully spun around, then turned back to me. His hand moved instinctively toward his service weapon, then stopped when he realized the implications. "This isn't what it looks like," Emma said, standing up from the bed. I smiled, still holding my phone up to record. "Really? Because it looks like my wife is fucking a married cop in a pay-by-the-hour motel room. But please, explain what it actually is." Tully stepped forward, trying to use his size to intimidate me. "You need to leave, now, or what? You'll arrest me for catching my wife cheating? That's not actually illegal, Officer Tully. You're trespassing. On public property? I don't think so." Emma moved to the doorway, her face pale. "Nate, please. Can we talk about this at home? Talk about what? Your book club? Because I have to say, this is some very interesting reading material." I held up the burner phone. Emma's face went white. "You went through my things? Your things? This phone is registered to Officer Tully here, bought with his credit card, so technically, I think it belongs to him." Tully's face darkened. "You have no right. Actually, I have every right. See, when you start sleeping with my wife, you make it my business. And when you use department resources to facilitate your affair, you make it a taxpayer concern." I was bluffing about the department resources, but Tully's expression told me I'd hit close to the mark. "I could arrest you right now," he said. "For what? Standing in a public parking lot, recording a conversation I'm part of? Please, Officer Tully, enlighten me about which law I'm breaking." Emma stepped between us. "Stop it, both of you. Nate, I know you're angry." "Angry?" I laughed, and the sound surprised even me. "Emma, I'm not angry. I'm impressed. 2 months of planning, burner phones, elaborate cover stories. You put more effort into this affair than you've put into our marriage in years. That's not fair." "Fair? You want to talk about fair? Fair would have been asking for a divorce before you started screwing around. Fair would have been not involving our daughter in your lies. Fair would have been not making me look like an idiot in front of the entire neighborhood." Tully stepped forward again. "Watch how you talk to her." I looked at him for a long moment, letting my SEAL training assess the threat. He was bigger than me, but soft around the middle. Probably hadn't been in a real fight since high school. His hand kept twitching toward his weapon, but he knew he couldn't draw it without justification. "Officer Tully," I said calmly, "I'm going to give you some free advice. Walk away, right now. Get in your patrol car and drive back to whatever shift you're supposed to be working. Pretend this conversation never happened." "Are you threatening me?" I'm trying to help you. Because if you keep standing there playing the white knight for my cheating wife, this situation is going to escalate in ways that won't end well for your career." Emma grabbed Tully's arm. "Derek, maybe we should—" "No," he said, shaking her off. "I'm not going to let him intimidate us." I pulled out my regular phone and showed them the screen. "See this? I've been live streaming this conversation to a private server. Everything you've said, everything you've done, it's all recorded and uploaded. If something happens to me tonight, if I have an accident or suddenly disappear, that recording goes directly to the state police, the FBI, and every news outlet in Connecticut." It was another bluff, but a good one. Tully's face went pale. "You're crazy," Emma said. "Maybe. Or maybe I'm just a guy who knows how to plan ahead. See, Emma, you forgot something important about me. I spent 8 years in the military learning how to outthink enemies who wanted to kill me. You think I can't handle a cheating wife and her boyfriend?" I pocketed both phones and stepped back from the doorway. "Here's what's going to happen. Emma, you're going to go home, pack a bag, and stay somewhere else tonight. Tomorrow, we'll discuss divorce terms like civilized adults. Officer Tully, you're going to forget you ever met my wife. If I see you anywhere near her or my daughter again, I'll file a complaint with Internal Affairs about your use of department time and resources for personal matters." "You can't prove anything," Tully said. I smiled. "Officer, I can prove you're supposed to be patrolling the east side of town right now, instead of screwing around in a motel room. I can prove you used your patrol car to meet my wife on at least 3 occasions. I can prove you bought a burner phone to facilitate an extramarital affair. How do you think that's going to look in your personnel file?" Tully's radio crackled to life. "Unit 47, what's your status?" He looked at the radio, then at me, then at Emma. The weight of his situation was finally sinking in. "Unit 47, respond please." Tully keyed his radio. "Unit 47, all clear. Resuming patrol." "Copy that, Unit 47. I nodded toward his patrol car. "Better get going, officer. Wouldn't want to keep the taxpayers waiting." Tully looked at Emma one more time, then walked toward his car without another word. I watched him drive away, his taillights disappearing into the night. Emma and I stood alone in the motel parking lot. 8 years of marriage reduced to this moment. "I never meant for it to happen," she said quietly. "But it did happen. For 2 months, it happened. Every morning when you kissed me goodbye. Every night when you tucked Sophie into bed. Every time you told me you loved me. It was all happening." Tears started running down her face. "I do love you." "No, Emma, you love the idea of me, the steady paycheck, the nice house, the respectability. But you don't love me. If you loved me, we wouldn't be standing in a motel parking lot having this conversation." She wiped her eyes, smearing her makeup. "What happens now?" "Now you go home and pack a bag. Stay with Casey, stay with your mother, I don't care. But don't sleep in our house tonight." "What about Sophie?" "Sophie stays with me. We'll figure out custody arrangements later." "Nate, please, can't we try to work this out?" I looked at my wife, this woman I'd promised to love and protect, and felt nothing but emptiness. "Emma, there's nothing left to work out. You made your choice. Now you get to live with it." I walked back to my truck and drove home, leaving her standing alone in the parking lot of the Sunset Motel. In my rearview mirror, I watched her get into her BMW and sit there for a long time before finally starting the engine. When I got home, Sophie was already asleep. I checked on her, pulling her blanket up to her chin and kissing her forehead. She stirred slightly but didn't wake up. Downstairs, I poured myself a bourbon and sat in my office, staring at the framed photo of my SEAL team. 8 guys who'd trusted each other completely. Now I couldn't even trust my own wife. My phone buzzed with a text from Jordan. "How did it go?" I typed back. "Phase 1 complete. Moving to Phase 2 tomorrow. Need anything?" "Not yet, but keep your calendar clear. This is just getting started." I finished my bourbon and went upstairs to check on Sophie one more time. She was sleeping peacefully, unaware that her world had just changed forever. In the master bedroom, I looked at Emma's side of the bed, at her nightstand with its collection of romance novels and moisturizers. Tomorrow I'd have to explain to my 6-year-old daughter why mommy wasn't coming home. But tonight, for the first time in months, I was going to sleep in my own house without wondering where my wife really was. Emma came home at 6 the next morning, her key turning quietly in the front door. I was already awake, sitting at the kitchen table with my coffee and my laptop, reviewing the security footage from our home system. She found me there, still in yesterday's clothes, looking like she'd spent the night crying in her car. "We need to talk," she said. "No, we don't. You need to pack and leave before Sophie wakes up." Emma sat down across from me, her hands shaking slightly. "Nate, I made a mistake, a terrible mistake, but we can get through this." I turned my laptop around to show her the screen. Security camera footage from our front porch, time-stamped from 3 weeks ago. Emma kissing Tully goodbye on our doorstep while I was at work, and Sophie was at school. You brought him here, I said quietly. Into our house, into our bed. Her face crumpled. How long have you known? Long enough. The question is, how long has this been going on? And don't lie to me, Emma. I have phone records, credit card statements, and enough surveillance footage to make a documentary. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Since March. 4 months. 4 months of lies. 4 months of playing the devoted wife while screwing around with Tully behind my back. Why him? Does it matter? It matters to me. Emma looked out the kitchen window at our backyard, where Sophie's swing set sat empty in the morning light. He made me feel alive again. Like I was more than just a wife and mother. Like I was desirable. And I didn't? You were always gone, Nate. Work trips, training courses, those security jobs that kept you out until all hours. When you were home, you were thinking about something else. The bills, the mortgage, your clients. When was the last time you really looked at me? I wanted to argue, but she wasn't entirely wrong. The transition from military to civilian life had been harder than I'd expected. The constant need to provide, to build a stable life for Sophie, had consumed most of my attention. So you decided to fix that by having an affair with a married cop. I didn't plan it. It just happened. Nothing just happens, Emma. You made choices. Every text message, every lie, every time you brought him into our house. Those were all choices. Sophie's footsteps on the stairs interrupted us. Emma quickly wiped her eyes and tried to compose herself. Daddy? Mommy? Sophie appeared in the kitchen doorway, her hair messy from sleep, clutching her stuffed elephant. Hey, sweetheart, I said, forcing a smile. Want some pancakes? Sophie climbed into her chair at the kitchen table, looking back and forth between Emma and me. Are you guys fighting? She asked. No, baby, Emma said quickly. We're just talking. Sophie wasn't buying it. At 6 years old, she was already too smart for her own good. Mommy's eyes are red, she observed. I have allergies, Emma said. I started making pancakes, letting Emma handle the questions. It was her lie to maintain, at least until I figured out how to explain the situation to Sophie. My phone buzzed with a text from Casey. Emma's not answering her phone. Is everything okay? I showed the message to Emma. Your accomplice is worried about you. She's not my accomplice. She's my friend. Friends don't help friends cheat on their husbands. They try to talk them out of it. Emma's phone started ringing. Casey's name on the display. Answer it, I said. Put it on speaker. Emma hesitated, then accepted the call. Emma, thank God. I've been trying to reach you all night. I'm fine, Casey. Where are you? I drove by the house this morning and saw Nate's truck in the driveway. Please tell me you didn't go home. I leaned toward the phone. Hi, Casey. Silence on the other end of the line. Nate, Casey said finally. I can explain. I'm sure you can. In fact, I'm looking forward to hearing your explanation. But not right now. Right now, I'm making pancakes for my daughter. Sophie looked up from her coloring book. Who's on the phone? Aunt Casey, Emma said. Hi, Aunt Casey, Sophie called out. Hi, sweetie, Casey said, her voice strained. I took the phone from Emma. Casey, Emma's going to be staying somewhere else for a while. I assume she can crash at your place? Nate, please, let's all sit down and talk about this like adults. We are adults, Casey. That's why Emma's moving out today, instead of me throwing her belongings on the front lawn. I ended the call and handed the phone back to Emma. Pack your things. You have until Sophie finishes breakfast. Emma went upstairs without another word. I heard her moving around in our bedroom, opening drawers and closet doors. Is Mommy going somewhere? Sophie asked. She's going to stay with Aunt Casey for a little while. Why? Because sometimes grown-ups need space to figure things out. Sophie considered this while cutting her pancakes into precise squares. Are you and Mommy getting divorced? The question hit me like a punch to the gut. I sat down next to her, trying to find the right words. I don't know yet, sweetheart. But no matter what happens, Mommy and I both love you very much. That will never change. Will I still live here? Yes, this is your home. Sophie nodded solemnly and went back to her pancakes. Sometimes I forgot how resilient kids could be. Emma came downstairs with 2 suitcases and her laptop bag. She kissed Sophie goodbye, promising to call her later. Nate, she said as she reached the front door. This isn't over. Yes, it is. After Emma left, I called my office and canceled my appointments for the day. Sophie and I spent the morning at the park, then went to lunch at her favorite restaurant. Normal father-daughter activities that felt anything but normal. That afternoon, while Sophie was napping, I called Jordan. "How's the home front?" he asked. "Emma's gone, staying with Casey." "How's Sophie handling it?" "Better than I expected. Kids are tough. What's next?" "I need you to do something for me. But it's going to push some boundaries." "Brother, I've been pushing boundaries since we were in diapers. What do you need?" "I want to know everything about Derek Tully. Financial records, personnel files, medical history, parking tickets, everything. That's going to require some creative research methods. Can you do it?" "Give me 48 hours." That evening, after Sophie was in bed, I sat in my office reviewing our financial situation. Joint bank accounts, credit cards, the mortgage, Sophie's college fund. Emma had access to all of it, and I needed to protect our assets before she decided to get vindictive. I was transferring money into accounts Emma couldn't touch when my phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello, Mr. Harlan? This is Officer Grant, Millbrook Heights Police. I'm Derek Tully's partner." I sat up straighter. "What can I do for you, Officer Grant?" "I think we should meet. There are some things you need to know about your situation, such as..." "Not over the phone. Can you meet me tomorrow? Say, Murphy's Bar at 8 p.m.? Why would Tully's partner want to help me? Let's just say Derek's been making some poor choices lately. Choices that reflect badly on the department." I thought about it for a moment. It could be a trap, but it could also be an opportunity. "I'll be there." "Come alone, Mr. Harlan, and bring your proof." The line went dead. I stared at the phone, trying to figure out Grant's angle. Either he was genuinely concerned about Tully's behavior, or this was some kind of setup. Either way, I'd be ready. I spent the rest of the evening making preparations, copies of all the evidence I'd gathered, stored in multiple locations, instructions for Jordan in case something happened to me, a will update naming him as Sophie's guardian if both Emma and I were out of the picture. And maybe I was being paranoid, but 8 years in the military had taught me that paranoia was just another word for preparation. The next day passed quietly. Sophie and I went grocery shopping, visited the library, and had dinner at home. Normal activities that helped maintain some sense of routine. At 7:30, Mrs. Patterson came over to watch Sophie while I went to my meeting with Grant. Murphy's Bar was a cop hangout, which meant Grant had chosen the location deliberately. Either he wanted witnesses, or he wanted me to feel outnumbered. I found him at a corner booth, nursing a beer and looking uncomfortable. Grant was in his mid-40s, gray at the temples, with the tired eyes of a career cop who'd seen too much. "Mr. Harlan, thanks for coming." I sat down across from him, keeping my hands visible and my back to the wall. "Old habits. You said there were things I needed to know." Grant took a long drink of his beer. "Derek's my partner, has been for 3 years. Good cop, mostly. But he's got a weakness for married women. This has happened before? Twice that I know of. Both times, the husbands were convinced to keep quiet. Transfers, promotions, that kind of thing. The department doesn't like scandal. And you think they'll try the same thing with me?" "I know they will. Captain Morrison's already been asking questions about you. Background checks, military record, looking for leverage." I wasn't surprised. "What kind of leverage?" "PTSD, disciplinary actions, anything that could be used to discredit you if this goes public." "Find anything interesting?" Grant smiled grimly. "Clean record, exemplary service, multiple commendations. You're not exactly the kind of guy they can easily discredit. So what's their play? They'll try to buy you off first. Quiet divorce, generous settlement, maybe some security contracts with the city. If that doesn't work, they'll get creative." "Creative how?" "Harassment charges, stalking, maybe some evidence gets planted during a routine traffic stop. These guys have been playing this game a long time, Mr. Harlan." I leaned back in my chair, processing the information. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I'm tired of cleaning up Derek's messes, and because you've got a kid who doesn't deserve to get caught in the crossfire." Grant reached into his jacket and pulled out a manila envelope. "Derek's personnel file, off the record. The real one, not the sanitized version they keep for public requests." I opened the envelope and scanned the contents. 3 complaints about inappropriate conduct with female civilians. 2 internal investigations that were mysteriously closed without action. A pattern of behavior that went back years. "This is good," I said. "But it's not enough. There's more. Derek's been skimming money from the evidence room. Small amounts, nothing that would be missed during routine audits. But it adds up. You can prove this? I can point you in the right direction. The rest is up to you." Grant finished his beer and stood up. Mr. Harlan, I don't know what you're planning, but be careful. Derek's got friends in high places, and they don't like to be embarrassed. Thanks for the warning. One more thing. Your wife's been asking Derek about getting full custody of your daughter. Claims you're unstable, dangerous, PTSD from your military service. The blood in my veins turned to ice. She said what? Derek's been talking to family court judges, social services, building a case. They're planning to paint you as an unfit father. I stood up slowly, my hands clenched into fists. They want to take my daughter. That's the plan. Discredit you, take your kid, and make the whole problem disappear. Grant headed for the door, then turned back. Mr. Harlan, I never met you tonight. This conversation never happened. He walked out, leaving me alone with the personnel file and a burning rage that I hadn't felt since Afghanistan. They wanted to take Sophie, my little girl, the only pure thing left in my life. They thought they could destroy my marriage, ruin my reputation, and steal my daughter. They were about to learn exactly what a Navy SEAL was capable of when someone threatened his family. I pulled out my phone and called Jordan. Change of plans. We're moving to phase 3. What happened? They want to take Sophie. Tully and Emma are building a custody case, claiming I'm unstable. Those bastards. Jordan, I need everything you can find on Derek Tully. Financial records, communication logs, everything. And I need it by tomorrow morning. You got it, brother. What else? Get me a meeting with the best family law attorney in the state. Someone who specializes in taking down dirty cops. Consider it done. I drove home through the quiet streets of Millbrook Heights, past the perfect houses with their perfect lawns, where perfect families lived their perfect lives. Emma thought she could take my daughter. She thought I'd roll over and accept defeat like some broken-down veteran who couldn't handle civilian life. She was about to discover that some wars don't end just because you come home.